It took several years actually to understand how to systemize a company, how to make it scalable, how to, delegate different activities, see what to really focus my time on in the different stages of the company's growth. And just there were like 100 different learnings in that process.
Welcome to Inside Pharma Leadership, where we explore how leaders across the life science ecosystem drive performance, innovation, and meaningful impact. Today, I'm joined by Maria, founder of BluePixel, an award-winning international UX, UI, design, and custom software development firm. Maria started BluePixel right out of college and in less than a decade has built one of the top UX, UI firms in Mexico, partnering with global brands like Bimbo, Office Depot, Philip Morris, Genoma Lab, and Didi. Beyond building scalable digital platforms, she's also an active speaker and mentor, helping shape the next generation of innovators in technology and entrepreneurship. Today, we'll explore how design, AI, and leadership intersect, what pharma leaders can learn about building digital platforms that drive adoption, performance, and growth. Welcome, Maria.
Thank you, Keith. What a great introduction. I'm very happy to be here.
Thank you. So you started Blue Pixel right out of college. What gave you the conviction to build instead of join? I know when I got right out of college, I trying to figure out how to find a job and join the army.
Yeah, so honestly, it was traction. Well, a combination of traction and my husband. Right out of college, I studied industrial design, and I thought I could do like every type of design. So if someone asked me, for designing a logo or like branding or a restaurant, whatever, I just say yes, yes, yes to everything. And this was before getting out of college. So when I was ready to start interviewing for companies and I saw like what they were offering, money wise, and also like the amount of time I would have to spend in those companies to build a career. And then I compared it to what I was already doing, like just with a little bit of my time. It seemed like it was a good idea to just like continue doing what I was doing. Although I never really imagined it would turn into what Blue Pixel is today. But honestly, I was a little bit frightened because I thought it was just luck, like I said, oh, right now we have some traction. I'm not sure what will happen next. But my husband, which was my boyfriend at the time, he was also an entrepreneur. And he told me, like, you know what, you should keep on pushing this. Like, don't join one of these companies. Just do your thing. So I think by looking at him and seeing what he was already doing, I got this courage. And I'm so grateful that I did, because I think it was like the ideal age to start my business, without anything to lose. At the time, I was living with my parents still, which in Mexico, that's normal to do a little bit after college, just so that your audience understands the context. So yeah, that was the whole process.
Cool. So what would you say was your biggest learning when you took that leap?
Well, I had a lot of learnings. First off, it's very different being a freelancer, which I did for a couple of years, from being an entrepreneur and just like building your company. And I think that's something that was a little bit difficult to understand at the time. So me being a freelancer, I was, like doing everything, like designing, charging clients, doing quotes, project management for my own projects, I guess. And I think that's just how entrepreneurs work. And in my mind, like any designer would be able to do that, right? So when I had too much work and I had to hire my first designer, I expected her to do all of the things as well. And very quickly I found out that's not how it worked. It took several years actually to understand how to systemize a company, how to make it scalable, how to, delegate different activities, see what to really focus my time on in the different stages of the company's growth. And just there were like 100 different learnings in that process. But going from freelancer to a business person, I think that's the most difficult part of it.
So Maria, what would you say was the biggest surprise as you move along your journey?
Well, there was a big surprise. One day, we were just like, I don't know, like 6 people in my company at the time. This was like maybe 7 or so years ago. We were just starting off and we went to like a little, we called it the summit. We still do. But it was funny at that time because we were very few people. So we went like for our annual offsite, and I just like, I was curious. I was like, I'm going to Google what's the best UX UI company in Mexico. which we started out the company as a UX UI company because I figured there weren't any other ones in Mexico. Whereas in the US, in Europe, you could see a ton of like these boutique firms that were super successful. And it just, I'll talk about what UX UI means a little bit after this.
Okay.
But I just like found this space, which is like design in technology, and we loved it. But in the years following, it started to grow in Mexico. Right now, it's huge, well, in Mexico and in the world. And so when we were in the summit, I was like, oh, I wonder what's the best company in UX UI in Mexico nowadays, right? So I Googled it, and to my surprise, BluePixel was ranked #1. And it was like, who even knows us? Like, what is it? But I learned that still the market was so young that even though we were a very, very, very small company, we were starting to get recognized and ranked in Google, which I mean, what Google says is basically true. So we built upon that. Like I found out how we got there, like what we could do to like exponentialize this, start doing like some marketing activities and just like pulling from this thread that we found. And that paid off in the long term because we still are ranked the #1. I think right now we have earned it, but it was like a very big surprise at the time.
Well, that's cool. Now tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about what UX UI is. I think I understand it, but I would be making an assumption.
Yes. No, that's a very good and basic question for this conversation. So UX stands for user experience and UI stands for user interface. Basically, it's like this design discipline. Like you have graphic design, fashion design, industrial design, like all of this, and it's the one that's most like in the technology space. What you do is in order to design an application or to design a website, it goes like very beyond graphic design. You have to understand the person that's going to be using the application, and this means that you have to do a lot of research. And it's like an anthropologic research, right? So you go, you
Okay.
interview users, you interview your stakeholders, you do some market research as well. So it has to do with marketing, right? So you'll understand like what other companies are doing, what you're trying to build, what the audience is, how they're reacting to it, all of that. And once you get like this overview of what's going on, then you go into the logic part of it. So you start like, it's called information architecture, which you imagine all of this journey, how the user is going to enter the app, and then what they're going to click, how it's going to connect to some other thing, what happens when they don't follow the happy path, right? So if there's an error, or how they can recover for it. So it's like a very logic heavy part of design. And then you get into the creative part of design. So once you have the logic, you design what are called like the wireframes, which are basically the screens, but without any like colors, type fonts, all of that. You make sure that it has a very good user experience. So you have to test it with users. You do like some prototyping, you test it out, and then you design it. And once you do that, you also have to work with the developers, right? So you have to understand how things are actually built, even though you don't know how to code. But you have to be able to understand that, to understand all of the methodologies in software development, how to keep improving on the products, how to measure the impact. So like what's the conversion rate for the platform that you're building, or there's a ton of so I love it because it mixes the right side of the brain with the left side of the brain all of the time. Typically, this is a process where there are several designers involved, but you can also have some scenarios where you have only one designer who's building this, depends on the company. So basically, that's UX UI. Now, my company started out just a UX UI company, but very early on, we also started hiring developers. So we're actually a software development company where we have a big area of software development, but we're still known as being like very UX UI heavy because I think like 99% of the software development companies are founded by engineers. And I think I'm the
Okay.
only crazy designer in Mexico who decided to, to do that. So yeah, but it's paid off. It was very difficult, honestly, but it's been a very good way to approach technology.
Okay. Now that's interesting because when I listen to you walk through that description, I guess I can say that I probably have done that, but not realizing it because in any given organization, you're using CRM system, you're rolling out an app to the sales force, you do usability testing, and you do some of that, and you do think about, the user experience. How do they get into the app? What are they doing? What mistakes might they make? And so I know we were building a meeting app that had some other technology behind it. So we kind of went through that process. I don't know that we hired people from outside to help us with that whole process. I think the company that did it was a software company, so I assume that they probably had designers that help kind of walk through that. And you talk about wireframes and things like that. So we do some of that stuff, but not as a profession, just thinking in terms of, I even think of it from a Six Sigma standpoint, where you try to reduce the number of errors that somebody's going to have when they're going someplace in an app. They're going to do certain things. I never thought in terms of building a company around that's what you do. But I guess when with consumers and things like that becomes very important.
Yeah, honestly, it does. And also in the healthcare industry, it's very important because, like, you can have the best technology with the best idea, and the like development can be flawless. Like, you might not have any bugs and it might work perfectly. But if it's not intuitive, then no one is going to use it, right? And for example, in the healthcare industry, what if you have like I don't know, an old person who doesn't have their eyesight at the same level as someone younger, and how are they going to, or maybe their, I forget the word in English, but like their hand can tremble a little bit.
Okay.
So you have to think about who's actually using the application and how they're going to use it in order to build something for them. So I think this is super relevant in the healthcare industry because honestly, I mean, you know it, technology is changing the way that patients and people interact with, and doctors and everyone interacts with their ecosystems.
No, absolutely. Now, obviously, when it comes to technology, everybody is talking about AI, machine learning, and all of those things. So, how has that impacted your business?
It has turned it around. Yes. So right now there's a lot of platforms such as Lovable, V0. I don't know. There's a ton. Basecamp, I think it's another one where you can just like it's like magic, and I'm obsessed because you can just like enter these platforms and ask for an app, like prompt it, and it'll build it for you, and then you can give it feedback, and you'll have to like be there in the computer a couple of days, maybe a week building this, but you can pretty much build something decent without any design experience, without any coding experience, and it's going to be good, right? So just understanding that, something that before it took like months to build, now anyone without any type of experience, they can build it. It came like as a huge threat, of course, right? You're like, well, we're going to be out of a job. So I was worried at first. No, I think I'm still a little bit worried, of course, because I don't know how this is going to evolve. Right now, I see it as a huge advantage because right now we can do very good and tested products in a very short amount of time and then put our effort into evolving these platforms from the start. So instead of like going through all of this process that I told you, I mean, we do go through it, but we go through it a lot faster. So maybe instead of doing like a 2-month research, we can do like a 1 week immersion, right?
Okay.
And so it's very like people heavy and very dynamic, but you can go through that fast at the beginning, and you can build a product to test out and to see. It's different to test like a designed product that's just like a simulated experience from something that actually works, right? So you can deploy that to the client maybe in 3 or 4 weeks. They can start using it. You can have a researcher, a designer, like understand what their experience is using it. And then you can go back and build the product that is actually scalable and secure, because that's something that these applications aren't yet. They're not scalable and secure. Like databases can be built into a mess. There's a lot of security vulnerabilities. And our clients, which are like these big corporations, obviously need these levels of security and scalability. So now once you understand like what you need to build and how to make it better, then you make it like with the more traditional process, in which of
Okay.
course you also use AI, right? It's not traditional, but you can accelerate it. And then there's like a ton of things that you can use AI to like simulate experiences or like test out some hypotheses. So right now I feel like there's magic in our fingers,
Mm.
you know, like this is a dream. Like I think that I'm still sleeping and dreaming because I would have never imagined this to be something that could happen in my lifetime, and I'm just so happy about it.
That's cool. Yeah, I look at it from the standpoint of, because I know everybody is afraid that AI is going to take everybody's job. I still think that there is a premium on knowledge. Somebody like me, I know very little about what you do. And so even though I could go in and make an app, I don't know that I could utilize that technology to make it excellent or outstanding, but because you've lived in the space and you have that knowledge, it in essence amplifies what you're able to do faster, quicker, as well as better. Organizations still have to make a choice if they're going to hire people from outside to do that internally. It's still heads count. It's still, at the end of the day, you can only be an expert in so many things. And so I look at it as is that AI is going to help. I mean, I think it's more about understanding how to utilize it, how to leverage it, in a way that helps make, the organization more effectively. That being said, Maria, one question I have, because I see a lot of companies or organizations where the tools themselves have AI that everybody uses to day-to-day work, but on the other side, there's kind of this individual component of AI. How has the team adopted using AI on an individual basis just for the day-to-day, I don't know, grunt work, email, notes, whatever, just the day to day stuff that we tend to work seems to take up that time. What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I think change management has been a huge challenge because right now in the company we're about like 60 people. We all work remotely, so that has made it a lot more difficult because I can't really see how people are using it, right? So what we did is from the very beginning when ChatGPT came out like 3 or 4 years ago, we made like different challenges, like and not just ChatGPT. There were a ton of apps that came out at the beginning, and we were like, oh, how could you like optimize your workflow using these apps? And we tried to be like very early adopters of the technologies, and I think that helped. But honestly, I do see that there is a very big difference around how some people use it within our company and some others, and the efficiency levels then are all over the place, right? And unfortunately, those people who are not being able to utilize it or don't have that curiosity, they're going to be left out. Because at least for myself, that I am a very big AI enthusiast and I use it like as my whole operating system in my brain, like I can't imagine my life now without AI, for better or for worse. But I think I am 10x more efficient, right? So I've seen that impact in my company, and I'm hoping that everyone can do that. But we haven't been able to make the change management and the adoption levels as high as I would have wanted or imagined it. I have learned that, I don't know, people just have different ideas. Some of them really do feel very threatened. So I do have like some designers, some developers that are actually, I think, very resistant to adopting these technologies. I mean, that's a new reality. So you do have to learn your way around them.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are scared of it. I mean, I don't know. I've adopted it and I use it every day. I can't imagine not having it now just because, it's almost like automatic. I remember one day that the Wi-Fi went out and I couldn't get on. I was freaking out. It's like, oh no, because you end up using it so much that you don't even think about it. It's
Right.
another tool. It's just like using Microsoft, or Word or whatever. It's just another tool that you have in your toolbox.
It's crazy. I mean, sometimes when I'm driving, instead of listening to a podcast and I'll be curious about like a topic, and I'll just go to like the talk mode in the audio mode in ChatGPT,
Yeah.
and I'll have a conversation like, tell me about this and what do you
Yeah.
think about this and how can we leverage it? And it's so interesting. It's just like it does shape your life in another way.
Yeah, it's a great thinking partner.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I just discovered the chat function. I went out to the garage because I said we're moving earlier, and so I took a picture, and I started asking questions, and so it told me how to divide stuff up. Put it in this file, create this file, and it was just cool. I just would have never thought of that, and so it just made the process a lot easier. So I'm a lot further ahead. I need to do that this week. Take some pictures and have a conversation about what to do with all this stuff here.
Yeah, for example, yesterday I was telling you at the beginning that I'm remodeling a new office, and I used to know how to make renders back in the day, but it was so time consuming. Like I don't even have the software anymore. Like I could figure it out, but I'm not gonna do it. And I really did not want to hire a designer and interior designing to do this because I just love design, and I thought like this is a great opportunity to like explode my creativity in designing this office. But I just don't have the time, right? So what I did is I took pictures of the empty space. I went there, I figured out what the layout would be and all of this stuff. And then I looked for furniture And then I asked ChatGPT, like, this is a picture, this is a furniture, like, put it here and make a render. And it's not perfect, but it's pretty amazing. Like something that would have taken like days and days. It was like, I love this. And I could see like how this sofa matched with this rug and with this other chairs. So it's, as I told you, it's like magic. And I just use it for every aspect of my life.
That's cool. So, if you were making a recommendation for people to get up to speed on using AI, what tools and resources would you suggest that they use?
So honestly, I would encourage people to use Lovable right now. I think it's just like, well, for me, it's like the pinnacle of what AI can do. Like just imagining a product. Like, for example, you want to make a recipe app, just like putting a very basic use case, right? But I've been there. Like, you can't find one that really adapts what you want to do. And you want it to suggest things that are, I don't know, in your fridge. And you also want to take into account, your blood tests, whatever. And if you can't find anything that's like that, then you can sit in your computer, as I said, like for 3 or 4 days. It's not gonna be immediate, but you can actually build this up for yourself, even if you're not going to like sell it to other people. But right now, I have built a couple of apps that I use in my day to day just because I was like the way I'm doing it right now, it's just not efficient. I gotta automate this, right? So I think it's super interesting. So for me, when I tried Lovable, it was like, I love this. As you said,
Okay.
it's not perfect yet. I think it has like its areas of opportunity, but that's one that I would really encourage people. Another one that we use a lot more in the company's context is Notebook LM. Have you used it?
I have not, no.
So Notebook LM is, I think it's from Google, and it uses Gemini. And what it does is that it lets you like input, documents, websites, whatever, all types of files. And then you can ask it questions and it'll tell you just like using the reference of the files that you're adding. And it'll tell you like, oh, this comes from here and this comes from here. So it won't be like hallucinating.
Okay.
And that's a very good one, like for the academic or like
Okay.
you
I could
know,
already think about how to use that because I'm
yeah,
working
and
on
also for the
yeah.
healthcare industry, I think that's like,
Yeah, because like sometimes you need references. I was working on a primer with a lot of medical or just healthcare type of background, and so always looking for references to be able to match back to what's been written, because when it goes through the legal regulatory process, you've got to have some reference behind it, and so being able to find that would make it easy. That would make it a lot easier. I mean, I use Perplexity,
mm,
which is a great tool because it goes out, it gives a lot of data and it'll give you all the sources and things like that. I think ChatGPT has gotten a lot better in regards to, less hallucination and more of it is about training it to understand who you are and what you do because it does a good job of replicating that more and more. So I think the more that people are able to do those type of things, the less hallucinations that they're going to get, because that's probably one of the top things that I hear, and I don't know that I see that much. I think it's more around providing the context, what you're looking for, and being very, very clear. And it's not that it doesn't happen. I mean, obviously you have to go back and check, but you can also ask for proof sources and those type of things, and then go in and check and make sure that that's consistent in what you see.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a very good one. And another one that I would really recommend is I've used Manus. Have you heard about Manus?
I have not, no.
So it's like one of ChatGPT's competitors. I think it's Chinese. But what I like about it is how it does the presentations. So you will like prompt it and it will take out like a very sleek, beautiful presentation.
Okay.
It's a lot of things. But just particularly for presentations, I also love Manus.
Okay.
And as you said, like it depends on what you work, your industry, and all of that. But those are different tools that I have like used in my day to day.
Okay. I'll have to check that one out. I was fooling around with a Gamma app, which does a similar thing. You can drop in, I dropped in like my business template in working on a slide deck. So it created that deck for me, excuse me. And then also you can also have, it'll do kind of like flyers and those type of things.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. So I created the outline in ChatGPT and then I dropped it in the Gamma app, and then Gamma app spit out a presentation for me.
And I think what you just mentioned is the most important thing of them all. Like being able to understand and adapt these technologies and then mix and, like I can use like 7 different AI tools for doing like one thing. but it'll just be like very organic, like
Yeah.
go from Word to Gmail to whatever, and then now
Yeah.
create that with AI.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing is people have to get comfortable with is, and I love conversations like this because you start to get an idea of what different people are doing, different tools that they're using, and then you can try on what works for you. And, you figure out, that works for me, that works for somebody else. But I think ultimately you have to have some level of curiosity and you got to be willing to play. And in some cases, stuff's just not going to work very well. It's kind of
Yes.
the nature of the beast.
Yes, of course. And it can get frustrating at times, but I think that's
Yeah,
part of it.
exactly. Exactly. So if you were giving people I guess recommendation around digital type of tools and things that they were going to utilize, especially specifically within the life sciences, what would be what recommendations and suggestions would you have for them when they're thinking through that process of bringing on a digital tool of some sort?
So honestly, I think there's so many tools out there that what you have to do is be curious, right? So there's even like catalogs. I can't remember the name right now, but if you Google it, like AI tool catalog or whatever, you'll find it. And you can just find AI tools for everything, right? So what I'd say is, for example, I use ChatGPT. Right? That's my main tool. I think most people do it the same way. But when I'm not sure what AI tool to use, then I'll just ask Chat. I'm trying to do this. I can't find a tool to do it. Like, what would you recommend? So, for example, 2 days ago, when I was thinking about the office remodeling, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna build the 3D render from scratch because it's gonna take so much time. But I might find like an architecture tool with AI where like I can prompt it and maybe upload the pictures and whatever. So I asked ChatGPT for this. It gave me like 4 different options. I tried them out and it was going to consume too much time for me. They were good, but they weren't what I was looking for. So then I was like, whatever. I'll just like ask ChatGPT to do it directly, and it might not be so perfect, but it's good enough for what I'm looking for, right? So that's when I'm saying it can get frustrated because I maybe did like use a couple of hours to test out these tools, and I got a little bit excited. I input my credit card information, then I canceled it. you know, how that happens. But in the end, I think you'll start discovering the ones that do work for you.
Well, good. Well, Maria, I really appreciate your time. Anything else you would like to share with the audience that we haven't covered or you thought we should
So,
cover?
I mean, just talking about, again, the healthcare industry, which I think your audience might primarily be focused on that, I'm guessing. It's amazing what AI can do and what it has already done. Like, I know, for example, there's been some investigations or like comparisons done with like comparing the diagnosis that some doctors might make with AI, and it's pretty similar. I'm not sure it's like right there yet, and obviously it depends on the doctor. Like maybe a specialized doctor will win against AI right now, but I think it's pretty interesting. So what we do in BluePixel is that we try to like it always comes from the clients, right? But we try to understand how AI can disrupt like any of these niches or industries and how you can mix the building a product with using AI to leverage it. And when you do that, you can have like a very winning company. I know, of course, like there's a HIPAA and there's like a lot of regulations, and you have to be very careful in the healthcare industry. But I would tell people to just like imagine this product, imagine what AI can do for them, go prototype it out in Lovable, like try it out. You guys can do it in a week. Maybe you can start a, billionaire company from this. So as I said, I'm very excited about how AI is being democratized in what I do. When I started out, like nobody could build a website, just like if you know how to code. And then a couple of years after, there was like Wix and Webflow and all of these tools that now let you build a website. Maybe not everyone did so, but an entrepreneur would be able to do so without paying like thousands of dollars to an agency or a freelancer. And now that's what's happening with the applications. And it's absolutely mind blowing because something that could cost like hundreds of thousands of dollars, now you can build yourself. when it's time to make it more scalable and more professional, then you can hire a company such as BluePixel. But I'm very excited about how now we all have this opportunity in our fingertips. And whether it's in the healthcare industry or in any other industry, I would encourage people to try it out because it's just like absolutely mind blowing.
Okay. Well, thanks for that tip. I know that when I think about AI, I think there's an opportunity for us all to be more human. I heard a story about an oncologist, and ultimately it was the AI that did the diagnostics and made all the recommendations, those type of things. But the patient's feedback was the reason that they picked the physician was because of who they were and how they related to the patient. So I think that's the piece that gets missed in all of this, that ultimately AI is not ever going to be human. And so our humanness gives us that ability to be able to connect more effectively with people. And as a result of that, we can live in a better place. So I think these tools are definitely fascinating. Where can we find you?
So I'm in everywhere. I'm in TikTok, in Instagram, in LinkedIn. My name is Maria De Buen. I'm sure it's going to be written in the podcast. Also, BluePixel, you can find it in Instagram, mainly in TikTok as well. I also have another podcast, which is called Entre Founders, but it's in Spanish. So if you have a Spanish speaking audience, we also interview like, founders who have founded very successful companies and they talk about their experience. So I'm pretty active in social media in general.
All right, Maria. Well, thank you so much. Really appreciate you spending time with me. And thanks again for showing up on Inside Pharma Leadership.
Thank you, Keith. It was a pleasure being here. I'm happy to be part of this project, and I wish you all of the greatest success.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.